India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour, India and Mauritius to jointly inaugurate new airstrip and a jetty at the Agalega Island in Mauritius. Projects will strengthen connectivity of Agalega with mainland Mauritius and strengthen maritime security. India slams Pakistan for raking up Jammu and Kashmir at the United Nations. Says Pakistan has no locus standi to pronounce on matters that are internal to India.
Pakistan has no locus standi to pronounce on matters that are internal to India.
Doctor strike in South Korea refuses to die down even as the government gives an ultimatum to the striking doctors to return to work today or face legal consequences. US Supreme Court agrees to hear Donald Trump's criminal immunity plea in April. Also, an Illinois judge puts order on hold after the state becomes the third one to bar Trump from the ballot. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Mauritius Prime Minister Pravind Jugnauth will jointly inaugurate the new airstrip and St. James Jetty at the Agalega Island in Mauritius on Thursday via video conferencing. Both the leaders will also inaugurate the 6 community development projects. The projects will fulfill the demand for better connectivity between mainland Mauritius and Agalega Island and will strengthen maritime security and foster socio-economic development in the region. The inauguration of these projects is a testimony to the robust and decades-old development partnership between India and Mauritius. The inauguration is also significant as it follows the recent launch of India's UPI and RuPay card services in Mauritius on 12th of February. All right, for more on this, our correspondent Akshay Dongre is joining us. Akshay, good morning. Explain to us what is the significance of this new airstrip at St. James Jetty at the Agalega Island in Mauritius.
Well, as far as connectivity of Mauritius to the rest of the world is concerned, the airstrips as well as this particular jetty project that will be inaugurated jointly by the Indian and Mauritius Prime Minister is going to give a big boost to the connectivity projects of Mauritius. Now, understanding the geography of Mauritius, the mainland Mauritius islands are about 1100 kilometers, over 650 miles away from Agalega Islands. So there are 2 islands of Agalega. One is the northern island, one is the southern island. And as far as the distance, the travel time between these islands and the mainland Mauritius is concerned, earlier via boat it used to take more than 2 days to travel just from the Mauritius mainland to the Agalega Islands. And that exactly is the reason that both India and Mauritius, who have been close partners not just in trade but also in other infrastructure projects as well, came up with this particular project and have in fact built an airstrip on the island of Agalega. Earlier in the northern island there used to be an airstrip which was about 800 meter long. While it was long enough for the shorter aircraft, it was not enough for cargo planes, which were extremely required as far as the connectivity to the rest of the world is concerned. And that exactly is the reason that this particular airstrip that will be inaugurated today is going to increase connectivity between the Agalega Island as well as and the mainland Mauritius as well as the rest of the world. So while Agalega Islands have been historically not that connected and have rather been ignored as far as tourism is concerned, this airstrip project along with other projects that are being inaugurated by the 2 prime ministers is going to give that particular boost required to the 2 islands in the region.
All right, Akshay, that was about connectivity, but also explain to us the role played by India and also in what ways do these projects contribute to enhancing maritime security in the region?
It's a joint project, Preeti, between the government of India and Mauritius, and the most important role of Agalega Islands, besides the potential of being a tourist hub, is also the geopolitical location, geostrategic location in the Indian Ocean region. As far as this particular area is concerned, about 60% of oil in the world travels from this particular route, and in the recent months, what we have seen is increasing number of piracy attempts, increasing number of attacks on merchant vessels, and keeping in view all of these threats that are now emerging in the Indian Ocean region, and India being the resident power of the region, this airstrip rather on the Agalega Islands are going to provide protection not just to the island region but also to the wider Indian Ocean region as well, with both of the governments of Mauritius and India having an access to better surveillance in the region via these airstrip that is being inaugurated today, and keeping in view that other projects, especially the RuPay project as well as the UPI inauguration that happened on 12th of February, this will be another big boost to the bilateral relations between the two countries. Preeti.
All right, Akshay, we leave it here. Thank you for joining in with those details. In other news, in a befitting reply to Pakistan, India stated that Pakistan has institutionalized the systemic persecution of its own minorities and has a truly abysmal human rights record, commenting on India, which is demonstrably making great strides in achieving economic progress and social justice, is not merely ironical but perverse. Exercising the right of reply at the high-level segment of the 55th regular session of the UN Human Rights Council on Wednesday, First Secretary Anupama Singh slammed Pakistan over terrorism. She said that Pakistan has no right to comment on India as its own hands are soaked in the red of the bloodshed from terrorism.
With regard to the extensive references to India made by Pakistan, we note that it is deeply unfortunate for the Council's platform to have once again been misused to make patently false allegations against India. We will make only 3 points. 1. The entire Union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh are an integral and inalienable part of India. Pakistan has no locus standi to pronounce on matters that are internal to India. 2. A country that has institutionalized the systemic persecution of its own minorities and has a truly abysmal human rights record, commenting on India, which is demonstrably making great strides in achieving economic progress and social justice, is not merely ironical but perverse. 3. A country that hosts and even celebrates UNSC-sanctioned terrorists, commenting on India, whose pluralistic ethos and democratic credentials are exemplars for the world, is a contrast for everyone to see. We cannot pay any further attention to a country that speaks while being soaked in red. The red of the bloodshed from the terrorism it sponsors around the world, the red of its debt-riddled national balance sheets, and the red of the shame its own people feel for their government having failed to serve their actual interests.
Slamming Turkey, Anupama Singh said that the country should refrain from making any unsolicited comments on internal matters of India.
India is exercising its right of reply in response to references to India during the high-level segment. Firstly, we regret the comment made by Turkey on a matter that is an internal affair of India and hope that it would refrain from making unsolicited comments on our internal matters in future.
At the 13th WTO Ministerial Conference in Abu Dhabi, India emphasized on the restoration of the appellate body as a top reform priority. The Indian team is being led by Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal. Brazil's Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira echoed India's call for meeting sustainable development goals. The WTO is hopeful about progress, especially in fishing, agriculture and e-commerce. Extending its support as a leader of the Global South, India's Union Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal said that 22 more countries have applied for WTO membership and India will take a sympathetic view of their demands and will support them. Speaking on the sidelines of WTO Ministerial Conference, the minister stated that the issues based on the nation's and world's interest raised at the conference.
हमारे इश्यूज एकदम टेबल पे हैं और हम जो इश्यूज रेज करते हैं बहुत सोच समझ के और देश हित और दुनिया के हित में रेज करते हैं। भारत वसुदैव कुटुंबकम की भावना से बात करते हैं WTO में। हमने जो G20 में माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने विश्व को नेतृत्व किया था, वन अर्थ, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर, वो आज भी भारत के लिए कायम है। और हम विश्व में जो गरीब देश हैं, लेस डेवलप्ड नेशंस हैं, जो डेवलपिंग विकासशील देश हैं, उनके विषयों पे भारत अवश्य चिंता करता है और उनके विषयों के ऊपर हम तीव्रता से अपनी बात रखते हैं।
On the sidelines of the 13th Ministerial Conference of WTO in Dubai, special correspondent of DD India talked to Internet Rights and Principal Coalition's founder Parminderjeet Singh on the work program on electronic commerce. Let's listen in.
We have an understanding that digital economy is a very big part of global flow of value. Increasingly, we all know the most important part of global flow of value will be digital. So can countries afford to give away their right to tax what is the most important part of the digital flow? Because this leads to loss of revenue, which is one thing, but it also leads to loss of policy space to control our pace of industrialization, protect our infant industries, how fast we industrialize, which areas we industrialize, because historically all countries including US have used tariffs to industrialize, and India has also done it. We do it for cars, for example, in automobile industry. So we need to protect our right to tax digital economy.
India, along with South Africa, has successfully blocked a key proposal led by China at the World Trade Organization on the third day of the conference. Now the agreement is unlikely to be adopted by the WTO in its current form. India raised several concerns regarding the Investment Facilitation Development Agreement. Firstly, India argued that the IFD falls outside the scope of the WTO, as it is not strictly a trade issue beyond the scope of Marrakesh Agreement. Secondly, India pointed out that the IFD does not fulfill the criteria for a formal agreement, as it has not received unanimous support from all WTO members, thus lacking the exclusive consensus required. Now, this is not for the first time India has voiced its opposition to the IFD. The country previously blocked the proposal in December 2023 and at the WTO's General Council meeting. India's consistent stance highlights its concerns surrounding the agreement's potential impact. Let's take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across India now. India's Trinamool Congress Party leader Sheikh Shah Jahan was arrested on early morning hours today by the police. The arrest came following mounting pressure on the West Bengal state administration amid allegations of crime, atrocities and violence against women. Shah Jahan was on the run for the last 55 days. The Indian Army has installed a 104 feet tall national flag near the line of control in Titwal area of Kupwara district in India's Jammu and Kashmir. The flag, which is less than 100 meters from Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, has been named as Azmat-e-Hind. The first edition of the Festival of Bharat Lok Sangeet Arunachal Utsav 2024 is underway in India's northeastern state of Arunachal Pradesh. The festival showcases the vibrant tapestry of the cultural heritage of the region. The program also offers captivating traditional and folk performances pertaining to the diverse states of India, including Arunachal Pradesh. The event has been organized as part of Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat initiative. A village in India's Uttar Pradesh is becoming a center of attraction because of the peacocks in the village. The Koni village in Gorakhpur district has more peacocks than humans. The village has also earned the name of Peacock Village. Every house in the Koni village is adorned with peacock feathers. When a peacock dies, the locals perform the burial in a ceremonial manner. The state forest officials have also named the village as Bird Guardian. We're heading for a short break on DD India News Hour, but after the break, President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump will travel separately to the US-Mexico border in Texas to address illegal immigration into the United States. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky seeks Balkan defense support at a summit in Albania. By-elections in England for a parliamentary seat after the previous lawmaker who represented the opposition Labour Party succumbed to leukemia in January.
The curious of Julian Assange. The future of lunar exploration. And the biggest snake discovered in the Amazon rainforests. Watch Connecting the Dots every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get to international updates. The US Supreme Court on Wednesday agreed to decide Donald Trump's claim of immunity from prosecution for trying to overturn his 2020 election laws. Now, this has given him a boost as he tries to delay criminal prosecutions while running to regain presidency. The justices put on hold the criminal case being pursued by special counsel Jack Smith. They will also review a lower court's rejection of Trump's claim of immunity from the prosecution because he was president when he took the actions. Now, the Supreme Court set the case for oral argument during the week of April 2022 on a single question, that is, whether and if so, to what extent does a former president enjoy presidential immunity from criminal prosecution for conduct alleged to involve official acts during his tenure in office. Trump, the first former president to be criminally prosecuted, is the frontrunner for the Republican nomination to challenge Biden, a Democrat, in the November 5th U.S. election. Trump, in a post on his social media platform, hailed the Supreme Court's decision to hear his immunity claim. In a surprise move, a Cook County judge on Wednesday ordered the state election board to remove former President Donald Trump from Illinois' March 19 primary ballot because of his role in the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Though the decision is delayed from taking effect in light of an expected appeal by the former U.S. president, Judge Tracy Porter's decision comes amid national debate over whether Trump is disqualified from the presidency because of his actions related to January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol and whether that attack amounted to insurrection. Colorado and Maine earlier removed Trump from their state ballots after determining he is disqualified. Both decisions are on hold while Trump appeals. The final outcome of the Illinois case and similar challenges will likely be decided by the U.S. Supreme Court, which heard arguments related to Trump's ballot eligibility on February 8th. President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are both traveling to the U.S.-Mexico border in Texas, holding separate trips to address illegal immigration into the U.S. The influx of migrants from Central and South America poses a significant challenge that could greatly influence the upcoming U.S. presidential elections as both men compete for the Oval Office. For further insights on this issue, our correspondent Benji Haya gets us additional analysis.
This is the US-Mexico border. We're in Brownsville, where President Joe Biden is setting foot on Thursday. He calls the situation here and across America's southern border a crisis. A record number of illegal migrants crossing into the United States in December of last year. Almost 3 million of them encountered by border officials throughout 2023. And we've seen hundreds queuing just on the Mexican side, waiting to get into the US in the coming hours and days. For Joe Biden, this trip is damage control. Yes, the White House says there will be stronger border security and asylum measures imposed soon, but immigration remains a top priority for many voters, and that is being pounced upon by none other than Donald Trump, the former president, the man who's the frontrunner to take on Joe Biden for the White House again in November of this year. He has his own trip planned, also on Thursday, a couple of 100 kilometers in that direction, at another border town in Eagle Pass. And he, of course, during his run for the presidency in 2016, famously endorsed building a wall just like this one across the whole US-Mexico border. In Brownsville, Texas, Benji Haya reporting for DD India.
The Israeli military released a video on Wednesday showing strikes on Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon. The purported strikes on the targets in Yarin and Bint Jabil both towns close to the Israeli border, came after Hezbollah ally Hamas said it launched 2 missile salvos from southern Lebanon into northern Israel. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said on Wednesday that Hamas's aim was to take pressure off its fighters in Gaza by forcing Israel to shift security resources to Jerusalem and the West Bank. Gallant's statement on Wednesday came after Hamas called on Palestinians to march to Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque at the start of Ramadan. Al-Aqsa in Jerusalem's Old City, one of the world's holiest sites for Muslims and the most sacred for Jews, has long been a flashpoint for potential violence, particularly during religious holidays. Israel has said it may set limits to worship at Al-Aqsa during Ramadan, according to its security needs. Many Palestinians reject any such restrictions on their access to the site. Meanwhile, there is no breakthrough yet in the peace talks in Qatar.
היעד העליון של חמאס בעת הזאת היא לגרום לכך שבהר הבית תהיה התלקחות, וכתוצאה מכך אנחנו נאלץ להסיר חלק מהלחץ ממנו ולהפנות משאבים וכוחות לכיוון יהודה ושומרון וירושלים. את זה אסור לנו לתת לו. מצד אחד אנחנו פועלים כנגד גורמי טרור, ומצד שני חובתנו לאפשר את חופש הפולחן, ואני חושב שאנחנו נגיע להסדרה המתאימה שתאפשר את זה.
The United States is considering airdropping aid into Gaza as land deliveries become increasingly difficult. Earlier on Tuesday, Jordan also airdropped aid into Gaza, where King Abdullah joined crew on board a Jordanian Air Force plane, Axios, which in fact first reported the US was considering airdrops, cited American officials to be saying that aid drops will have a limited effect since a military plane can only drop the amount of supplies equivalent to that transported by 1 or 2 trucks. Meanwhile, Israel's Deputy UN Ambassador Jonathan Miller said that Israel is committed to improving the humanitarian situation in Gaza and that the quantity and pace of aid depending on the capacity of the UN and other agencies. On to updates to Russia, related to Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky tried to build further support for Kyiv among southeastern European countries as he co-hosted 2-day summit with Albanian government. He put forth his vision of peace in Ukraine and of joint arms production. Zelensky proposed organizing a Ukrainian Balkans Defense Forum in Kyiv or a Balkan capital to nurture arms cooperation, just like it conducted with US and UK weapons companies last year. The summit in the Albanian capital, Tirana, comes as Kyiv is trying to improve its defensive capabilities to fight Russian forces at the time of faltering US support.
Ukraine emphasizes that all of us in Europe must be ready to defend our sovereignty, national dignity, and our people's way of life. Everyone is under threat. This kind of Russia has a significant toolkit for destabilization.
This is not an existential threat just for Ukraine. This is a threat for whatever we think our future should be. This is not rhetoric. If we want a future in the European Union, we want the European Union. We don't want to see the European Union dissolved after entering in a never-ending corrosive infight.
Russian Defense Ministry has claimed to have taken the village of Lastoshiken near Avdiivka. Now, the claim came after Ukraine's military said on Tuesday that it had withdrawn from 2 more villages near the eastern town of Avdiivka, which was captured earlier this month by Russian forces. With this, Kyiv has lost more territory. Russian troops have also entered the village of Robotin in Ukraine's southern Zaporizhzhia region. The region has been the focal point of many recent attacks. However, it was unclear whether Ukrainian troops have completely withdrawn from it. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk will meet protesting farmers' leaders on Thursday as demonstrators continued across the country. Ukrainian officials recently held lengthy talks with their Polish counterparts to tackle the border disruptions triggered by the protests. Ukraine said there had been no question of closing the joint border. Farmers across Europe have been protesting against constraints placed on them by EU regulations meant to tackle climate change as well as rising costs. They say that there is unfair competition from outside the EU, particularly Ukraine. Voters are going to the polls on Thursday in another by-election for a parliamentary seat in England. Now, this one was called after the previous lawmaker who represented the opposition Labour Party died of leukemia in January. It looks set to be another major defeat for the governing Conservative Party, but unlike previous recent by-elections, that won't mean a Labour win, as the party felt compelled to resign their endorsement of their candidate following a last-minute scandal. Stuart Smith explains us more from London.
This by-poll, or by-election as it's known in the UK, is the third in 2 weeks. It's happening in Rochdale, part of northern England's largest city, Manchester. While the result won't change much for the governing Conservative Party, their candidate is highly unlikely to do well. However, the opposition Labour Party's initial choice, Azhar Ali, lost the party's backing after making anti-Semitic comments blaming Jewish media executives for critical coverage of pro-Palestine lawmakers. Before that, he was caught on tape claiming Israel deliberately weakened security before the October 7th massacre to give them a green light to attack Hamas in Gaza, a comment he later apologised for. Those controversies forced Labour to drop him, but too late for a replacement candidate to be nominated instead due to electoral rules. It now means the frontrunner in the by-election is not from any of the major parties. Azhar Ali is still predicted to win significant support, but is no longer representing the Labour Party. And the new frontrunner is an ex-Labour lawmaker called George Galloway, who became a thorn in the Labour Party's side for decades for taking stances consistently more extreme than party policy and making a name for himself as a controversial outsider. But he's maintained a strong pro-Palestinian stance, and in a constituency with a strong Muslim presence, he could clinch the seat to return to Parliament as an MP for the first time since 2015. Stuart Smith in London, reporting for DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, wildfire in Texas has scorched 500,000 acres, causing damage and destruction across northeast of Amarillo. Thailand's northern provinces facing toxic smog, ranking among the world's top 10 most polluted cities. US space lander team says their mission has changed the economics of landing on the moon.
That never stops, where information shapes our reality. One app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get you a quick relook at the top stories once again. India and Mauritius to jointly inaugurate new airstrip and a jetty at the Agalega Island in Mauritius. Projects will strengthen connectivity of Agalega with mainland Mauritius and strengthen maritime security. India slams Pakistan for raking up Jammu and Kashmir at the United Nations. Says Pakistan has no locus standi to pronounce on matters that are internal to India. Doctor strike in South Korea refuses to die down, even as the government gives an ultimatum to the striking doctors to return to work today or face legal consequences. US Supreme Court agrees to hear Donald Trump's criminal immunity plea in April. Also, an Illinois judge puts the order on hold after the state becomes the third one to bar Trump from the ballot. It seems no amount of threat is enough to stop South Korean doctors from protesting against government's way of dealing with shortage of doctors in the country. The government has asked the doctors to return to work by February 29, that is Thursday, else face legal action including suspension of their licenses. The government on Wednesday assigned nation's military and community doctors to hospitals starting in March under an emergency healthcare program. 2/3 of the nation's residents and interned doctors had walked off the jobs to protest a government plan to increase the number of students admitted to medical schools in a bid to address what authorities say is a shortage of doctors. The protest led to disruption in services at large hospitals, forcing some patients to cancel surgeries and procedures. Okay, DD India correspondent Chris Gilbert joins us with more from Tokyo. Chris, good morning. Get us the latest. How do we see the strike or the situation further pan out? We've seen the South Korean government give the ultimatum to the doctors.
Good morning. Well, I think you summarised the situation very nicely. There doesn't seem to be any end to the standoff between the striking doctors, the resigning doctors, and the government. As you mentioned, the health ministry has given till the end of today. There has been a last-minute request, or I guess you can say a reminder of the ultimatum that they have given these workers, which is to return to work today or effectively face legal action or have their licenses revoked. Few doctors seem to be heeding this call. About 9,900 have resigned, 9,000 have walked away from their hospitals, about 300 have returned. In response, the health ministry has filed complaints, official complaints against 5 heads of the doctors' lobby, and they have begun visiting the homes of trainee doctors as well to try and get this ultimatum through, as doctors have reportedly been turning off their phones so they cannot receive the calls or text messages from the government telling them to get back to work.
All right, Chris, explain to us how is the medical sector there panned out, because the doctors are opposing the stance of the government to bring in more doctors to tackle shortage of medical staff. Having said that, what options are the striking doctors? Are they giving any options to the government? And for that matter, what is the take of the government on the strike ahead?
Yeah, I mean, it's a deep situation in South Korea that really goes to the core of society, with the depopulation issue, with the lack of doctors in the rural area. It's very vast to cover the entirety of it, but very briefly, the government is facing, as new data shows today, a worsening depopulation crisis, a falling fertility rate, and they need doctors in the countryside. Medical schools have about 3,000 seats available. They want to boost it to 5,000 seats to get more doctors effectively. Now, even though the simple answer is that the trainees are protesting in reaction to that policy, that's not the whole truth. The whole truth is the doctors themselves are saying that this policy is not going to fix the things that they have been complaining about for some time, that they have been saying their hours are too long, 36-hour shifts, 100-hour weeks. They say they get paid about $2,000 less a month than trainee doctors in the United States. They say they are open and vulnerable to malpractice lawsuits, and they want more legal protections, and that the government's latest action has been to increase the number of seats at medical schools, which is only going to increase competition. Now, the public, about 70% or so, are on board with this government plan. One could assume potentially they're also on board with the hard line that's taken by the government. But the fact that senior doctors are also protesting in solidarity with the junior doctors, although not resigning, suggests that this is also a situation that they experienced when they were trainee doctors or interns or doing their fellowships, and it is part a problem that is endemic in the South Korean health system and needs to be addressed at some point.
All right, Chris, thank you for joining in with those details. And the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and South Korea's Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yul discussed the strong bilateral partnership in Washington on Wednesday. Both the leaders reaffirmed solidarity on global issues, including North Korea and supporting Ukraine. They also discussed upcoming summit for democracy, cooperation in technology and trilateral efforts, which Japan was also the highlight of the meeting. The meeting concluded with optimism for future collaboration, underscoring the enduring alliance between the two nations. After two fiery failures, North Korea has launched its first spy satellite, Malyong-1 satellite, into the orbit. North Korea announced that its satellite is alive after detecting changes in its orbit that suggested Pyongyang was successfully controlling the spacecraft, although its capabilities remain unknown. South Korea's defense ministry said it too had assessed that the satellite was in orbit, but said that it would not comment further on individual analysis. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. asserts Manila's firmness in defending sovereignty in the South China Sea against an assertive China. On an official visit to Australia, Marcos Jr. told the Australian Parliament on Thursday that he would not allow any foreign power to take 1 square inch of the country's territory. Australia and the Philippines began their first joint sea and air patrols in the South China Sea in November, aimed at countering an increasingly assertive China, which claims the entire sea as its own. The South China Sea is a major source of tension between Philippines and China.
We remain firm in defending our sovereignty, our sovereign rights, our jurisdiction. I shall never tire of repeating the declaration that I made from the first day that I took office. I will not allow any attempt by any foreign power to take even 1 square inch of our sovereign territory. The challenges that we face may be formidable, but equally formidable is our resolve. We will not yield.
A wildfire in Texas has scorched 500,000 acres since Monday, causing damage and destruction across the northeast of Amarillo. The Texas A&M Forest Service reports no reported injuries or deaths, but several smaller wildfires are burning other parts of the northern panhandle. Governor Greg Abbott issued a disaster declaration for 60 countries and directed the Texas Division of Emergency Management to activate over 95 firefighters. As of Wednesday, over 13,000 Texas homes and businesses were without power, with over 4,000 in the panhandle region alone. Thailand's northern provinces are facing toxic smog, with Chiang Mai ranking among the world's top 10 most polluted cities. The city's provincial seat, Chiang Mai, is shrouded in smoke haze, making it difficult to see the iconic Doi Sutep mountain. The city has identified 13 pollution hotspots. The high PM 2.5 levels are under investigation to determine if they originate from local sources or drift across borders from neighboring Myanmar. Recent northwesterly winds also contribute to the issue. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is due to testify to Congress today about his secret hospitalization. Lawmakers are set to ask him about why he waited 3 days to alert top officials after he went to hospital in January for complications from prostate cancer surgery. DD India's Kate Fisher reports from Washington on this.
Well, at the time, the scandal provoked criticism and calls for Secretary Austin's resignation from members of both parties. President Biden called the decision a lapse in judgment. Secretary Austin was admitted to hospital on January the 1st after he experienced complications from prostate cancer surgery that he'd had days earlier. But his aides did not tell the White House until January the 4th. He also didn't inform the president or other top officials about the cancer diagnosis that he'd received in early December until January the 9th, and that was just hours before officials at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center actually released that information publicly. Well, Lloyd Austin has apologised to the president, his colleagues and the American people for, he says, not properly communicating his cancer diagnosis and treatment, and he says that he takes full responsibility for that. But on Thursday, he faces questions from lawmakers for the first time after the House Armed Services Committee Chairman Mike Rogers launched a formal inquiry into this incident last month. The Pentagon and the Defense Department's Inspector General are conducting internal reviews, and defense officials have said that the department has already instituted some changes in procedure since the incident. In Washington, Kate Fisher reporting for DD India.
The team behind a US space lander says their mission has changed the economics of landing on the moon. Speaking on Wednesday, representatives from Intuitive Machines and NASA said that the Odysseus lander will be put to sleep before being powered up again in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Last week, it became the first privately developed spacecraft to soft land on the lunar surface. Sally Patterson gets us more.
The CEO of Intuitive Machines, which created the Odysseus moonlander, called the past week's mission a daunting journey. Stephen Altimus says his company had overcome many engineering challenges to make the mission a success. The space lander, affectionately referred to as Odie, managed to touch down on the moon gently and with precision, according to its creators. But it tipped over during its landing near the moon's south pole. And earlier this week, the company said the mission would be cut short. Intuitive Machines, though, called the mission a success, pointing to the steady stream of data it's been sending back to Earth for controllers to analyse. All of the payloads on board, both commercial and NASA pieces of equipment, were functional. The briefers said all the commodities, such as helium and power, brought for the mission had been used up. The company says it's changed the economics of landing on the moon and kicked open the door for many more missions in the future. That includes sending human explorers back to the moon. The company acknowledged that though this was a US landing, it was a truly global effort. The team worked with NASA and also with countries around the world, including India, to make the mission possible. That included using antenna dishes and also in the supply chain. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
Let's take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across the world. A helicopter carrying 6 people crashed off the coast of western Norway, causing all on board to be hoisted from the sea. The helicopter was on a search and rescue training mission, and the cause of the crash was yet to be determined. The area was experiencing high winds at the time of the accident. The medical condition of the 6 patients remains unclear. British biotechnology company Oxitec is launching genetically modified mosquitoes to reduce Brazil's dengue cases. The mosquitoes carry a gene that kills female offspring before they reach maturity, suppressing the population. The mosquitoes proliferate in a given region, reducing the total insect population. The treatment has been deployed in the city of Suzano, Sao Paulo, where the mosquito population is up to 90% lower than in the untreated areas. Siamese crocodile offspring have been found at Thailand's largest freshwater lake, Pyong Boraphet, for the first time in 7 years. The sightings indicate a balanced ecosystem and successful hatching, thanks to the rich biodiversity, suitable weather conditions, and local community cooperation. Siamese crocodiles are critically endangered in the wild. Larry Callies, a former country music singer, has revived his interest in the genre after losing his voice to dysphonia. He admires Beyoncé's success as the first black woman to top Billboard's Hot Country Songs chart and believes it will encourage more black Americans. A short break ahead, but after the break, another deadline looming for US Congress to agree on government spending. In sports, BCCI drops Ishan Kishan and Shreyas Iyer from central contracts lists. It's 29th of February today. Did it stir your rationale? Stay with us as we decode for you the anomaly of a leap year.
Case of Julian Assange. The future of lunar exploration. And the biggest snake discovered in the Amazon rainforests. Watch Connecting the Dots every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India. In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get to updates from the world of business now. There is another deadline looming for Congress to agree on government spending before the weekend. Democratic and Republican leaders in the US Congress have been holding closed-door talks to try and reach an agreement, which they now claim they have, aiming for a budget deal to avert a partial shutdown amidst the Friday deadline. Caroline Malone gets us more from Washington.
Isn't made by March 1st, there will be a partial shutdown of the government, with implications for some public services and federal employees. At the end of last year, Congress agreed on short-term spending bills, with 4 of them due to expire at the end of Friday. That's impacting the Departments of Development, Agriculture, Energy, Veterans, Transportation and Housing. And another 8 spending agreements are due to expire at the end of March 8th. Well, Republicans want more consideration for conservative policies, including those on abortion and border issues. They also want to get rid of some of the Biden administration's policies, such as on climate change. The lack of agreement, though, in Congress is also impacting spending for Ukraine, Israel and the Indo-Pacific. The Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said this week that it's the fault of the House Republicans, who he says need more time to sort themselves out. House Speaker Mike Johnson has said, though, that there are new requests being considered from the Democrats, and that's getting in the way. But if talks fall apart, there could still be a shutdown. At this stage, it would not affect the budgets for Social Security and Medicare, which is the federal health coverage. But it could affect up to 100,000 federal workers, many of whom work and live around the capital. Caroline Malone in Washington for DD India.
US stocks closed lower on Wednesday, a day ahead of a key inflation reading that could influence expectations for the interest rate cut timing by the Fed. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, the Fed's preferred inflation gauge, is expected to show prices ticked 0.3% higher on a monthly basis in January. Stocks have struggled to retain upward momentum in recent days, leading up to the data after a lengthy rally peaked last week on enthusiasm around the potential for artificial intelligence after NVIDIA reported quarterly earnings. The S&P 500 slipped 0.17%, losing 8.42 points to end at 5,069 points, while the Nasdaq Composite lost 0.55%, losing 87.56 points to close at 15,947. The Dow Jones Industrial Average slipped 0.06%, falling 23 points to close at 38,949. Even Asian equities largely opened weak today ahead of the crucial US inflation data that could trigger Fed's action on rates. Japan's Nikkei share average slipped 0.45%, easing back a little further from the record peak reached on Tuesday. South Korea's Kospi declined 0.54% and the Taiwanese index was flat. Hong Kong's Hang Seng, however, added 0.44%. Also, the Indian benchmark indices opened with minor cuts today. Sensex opened 0.12% lower at 72,220, while Nifty ended 0.07% at 21,935. Trades, however, picked up later in the opening session. French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire has voiced his support for the second term of Kristalina Georgieva as the Managing Director of International Monetary Fund. Brazilian councils and officials hosting the two-day meeting in Sao Paulo sought to focus talks on economic cooperation to tackle issues such as climate change and poverty. On the sidelines of the G20 summit on Wednesday, Le Maire praised Kristalina Georgieva for the great job she has been doing and also said it made sense to keep Georgieva in the top post at the global lender. Georgieva's 5-year term ends on September 30th.
To emphasize that Kristalina Georgieva is doing a great job as managing director of the IMF. And when you have someone doing a great job, it's always better to keep the same person at the same post.
Let's turn focus to sports now. In cricket, in a big move, the BCCI on Wednesday dropped Indian middle order batsman Shreyas Iyer and also wicketkeeper Ishan Kishan from its annual central contracts list 2023-24. The national body removed Iyer and Kishan from the central contract list despite both of them featuring on India's ODI World Cup campaign last year. The duo were excluded after ignoring the directive from BCCI to play the Ranji Trophy. There were many speculations about the duo being dropped. Ishan Kishan took a break midway into India's tour of South Africa, after which he was not picked for the T20 International Series against Afghanistan and the Test Series against England. Shreyas Iyer recently excused himself from a Ranji Trophy game of Mumbai due to a back issue. On to the Khelo India University Games now. Chandigarh University beat the top seed Jain University 3-1 to clinch the men's badminton team gold, while Adamas University bagged the women's team gold title. Adamas University did not break much sweat in the women's team final, with former national champion Anupama Upadhyay, also a TOPS development athlete, winning both her singles and doubles matches against Sri Jagdish Prasad JT University. With just one day left for the curtains to come down on the games, Chandigarh University leads the standings with 26 golds, 17 silvers and 16 bronze medals. Lovely Professional University continues to occupy the second slot, while Jain University comes in third. On to tennis now. Andy Murray hopes to challenge for a third Olympic gold medal in Paris this year before his retirement. The 36-year-old British player, the only man ever to win Olympic singles titles twice, has struggled for victories in recent months and is currently ranked 67th in the world. Despite a run of poor form and the likelihood that he is just months from the end of his illustrious career, Murray wants to play in Olympic Games before retirement. 3 times Grand Slam champion Andy Murray won singles gold at London 2012 and in Rio 4 years later, but could be in danger of missing out on qualification for the singles in Paris if his ranking continues to slide. The Scot lost to France's Hugo Humbert on Wednesday. This year, there is an unusual date on your calendar, that is February 29th, meaning 2024 is a leap year. Let us explore the cause behind such anomaly.
Every 4 years, our calendars undergo a remarkable adjustment, adding an extra day to the month of February. But why? What prompts this temporal anomaly? At the heart of the matter lies the intricate dance between our planets and the Sun. You see, Earth's orbit is not perfectly aligned with the passage of time. It takes approximately 365.25 days for Earth to complete its journey around the Sun, not the neat 365 days we have come to expect. Long ago, the ancient civilizations grappled with this discrepancy, devising various methods to reconcile the solar year with the lunar and seasonal cycles. The Georgian calendar reforms of 1582 introduced the concept of the leap year, stipulating that years divisible by 4 would have an extra day added, that is, February the 29th. To check if a year is a leap year, one can divide the year by 4. If it is fully divisible by 4, it is indeed a leap year. For example, the year 2024, it is fully divisible by 4, hence it is a leap year. This ingenious adjustment ensured that our calendars remain synchronized with the Earth's orbit, preserving the sanctity of timekeeping for generations to come.
Today, leap year serves not only as a practical adjustment to our calendars but also as a source of fascination and curiosity. So, as we mark this quadrennial event, let us marvel at the marvels of timekeeping and celebrate the beauty of a world's intricate dance through the cosmos. With camera person Shubham, this is Tripathi for DD India.
Alright, that's it in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.